Hi everyone, I'm Carl from Founder Sessions, and I've just finished recording episode 1 of the podcast. The guest was Steve Pugh of Roadmap MBA. We spoke all about Roadmap MBA and the importance of business education and the accessibility of business education. I thoroughly enjoyed it and learned so much, and I hope you do too. Enjoy. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being the first ever guest on this as well. How are you doing today?
No, good, thank you. And honestly, it's a pleasure. I remember the first podcast I ever did. I picked someone that'd be quite a friendly face that even if it was a complete car crash, they wouldn't mind, you know what I mean? But I empathize. But the beauty of this is obviously because it gets recorded and kind of grows is that in some point, probably in about 6 months or a year, you're going to watch this back and you'll see how far you've come. And that's the beauty of, but no, it's a pleasure to be a guest and as a fellow kind of podcaster and someone that does this. I know how hard it is. I'm here to kind of support you and hopefully give great value to people and just answer some honest questions. And yeah, hopefully have a good kind of, interview.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I'm already in envy of the setup, by the way. It's top tier, I've got to say.
Well, the funny thing is that when so I started and I learned to live stream during the first lockdown. It was when everyone started to work from home. I didn't even know what Zoom was. And actually, from my spare bedroom, I did my first like 20 or 30 kind of interviews. And it gradually you get better and better and you have different setups. Then I moved to a bigger office, which I got free from a client. But then I wanted to really up my game still. And what you can't see, but you might see if you look at some of the social media, this setup is probably like 20, 30,000 pounds worth of like kit and sound blankets and lighting and even this microphone and all the stuff. It was like 500 quid. And it just, but it grows. But because for me, streaming and podcasting, and that is such a key part of amplifying your message, I think it's still money well worth spending for almost any business because it's a way to hit thousands and thousands of people, arguably for free once you've kind of set up. And just on LinkedIn Live, when I do my kind of interviews, or every Friday I do a live Q&A, which is a different kind of setup, it goes up to 19,000 people. And if I was to pay to advertise to 19,000 people who are business leaders in the sector, you're talking tens of thousands of pounds. So to be able to do it under my own control, under my own steam, whenever I want, is an absolute dream. So yes, I did kind of go all in on the setup, but actually I think it's a wise business investment for anyone.
No, it's beautiful, and it's definitely on my goal list. Not for this
Well,
year, but maybe a few years to get a good founder session set up. I think that'll be amazing.
I must think your friend Tam Shed reached out to me before and he was asking me about podcast setups. But you don't have to start with anything fancy. You could start with just your mobile phone and that's it. But the more time and effort you want to put into it, it's marginal gains. So if you kept doubling the amount of money that you put into your setup, you're not going to notice that much of a difference. But I think for a lot of founders, same as whatever your business is, if you do it because you enjoy it, you don't mind. So for me, this is a hobby that even that sign in the background, that was 1,300 quid, which was custom made for my logo. But it's part of selling the dream. And when I do YouTube and that kind of thing, it's the details that I think people notice over time is what makes the difference between people that are internationally successful with their business or startup or people that float into the distance and disappear. And that's the thing for me is that when you have a business or a mission or something that you're really passionate about, one way that you may choose to kind of talk about it and amplify it is through doing founder sessions or whatever. But actually, it's an important part. And when people actually see your brand and see it reflected in the video and the sound and whatever, it tells you a lot about your company and stuff. And, it doesn't have to be perfect from day one. And I've got ambitions to really upscale this again still for next year. But you got to start somewhere and it's fun. And, the really important thing is actually to do with the content. If you had the best setup in the world, but the content was crap, nobody's going to care. But if you can talk about genuine value that people are interested in, they actually don't care if the quality is not very good, technically, if it's of interest. And that's the big thing that I think most people get wrong is that they worry too much about the lighting, the cameras, the setups, when actually it's about what you talk about. And I think that's why your kind of YouTube series was really good, just talking about general day-to-day stuff that you're doing. And it's more, anyway, about that kind of thing. But hopefully, yes, and you're always welcome to come and have a look around and see it in person.
Oh, brilliant. So we touched on a little bit of what Roadmap MBA does, but I'm going to give you the floor. Could you pitch Roadmap MBA to the people watching, the people listening? Tell us
Yeah.
all about it.
Okay. So I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. I'm good at my job. I'm a management consultant now, and I work with companies around the world to help them grow and develop. I've done that for the past kind of 10, 15 years, and I'll be honest, I'm really good at it. But one of the issues that you face when you go through your career is that there are millions of people around the world that want to progress their careers, develop their businesses, and really help, develop a life for themselves, to help reach their ambitions. But the truth is, 99% of people can't afford traditional business education. If you want to go and do a traditional MBA in the UK, you're looking at 12 to 90,000 pounds. In America, it's a lot more than that. But that's just the cash. You also have to think about time. And if you're a parent or you work a job or whichever, most people can't afford to give up time off work, that kind of thing. But then throw into the top of that is that you have ironically, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders left school early. It wasn't for them. They wanted to pursue other pursuits. But one of the other big issues with business education and traditional education, and this is someone that I have 2 master's degrees, I did a PhD at Sheffield. I've been there. But a lot of people, they make complicated information complicated. They don't simplify it, because the irony is that to really, I think it's an Einstein quote, but to explain something simply, you need to really, really understand it. So one of the things that I really wanted to do with the Roadmap MBA, and it comes in a textbook like this, and Carl held it up before, is to give people access to quality business education from someone that lives it and breathes it all day, every day, that I get paid by the hour to turn around companies. So you have to be good at what you're doing. We give away a huge number of courses for free that people can't afford it. So we have a buy one, gift one initiative that, in being honest, if a company buys 5 for their kind of leadership team, that probably allows me to fund about 50 courses to people around the world. But the mission behind, when I grew up, there's no way I could ever have afforded professional business education. And I know that that's true around the world. And what I'm looking to do is not replace what business schools and universities do. It's to help people that don't have access to it. And that's the crucial niche. But then likewise, working with businesses every day, predominantly kind of small SMEs, there's a lot of challenges that people in smaller businesses face, or smaller startups face, where you often have to wear different hats. So you might be the CEO, but you also have to do HR, you also have to do sales, you have to do marketing, you have to write the strategy. And it's very difficult. Nobody can teach you to do that. So we put it all in one place, the complete kind of roadmap to grow your kind of business or career. But then likewise, to really make the business concept simple. So rather than read a 400-page strategy book, it really goes into huge detail. Most people actually just want to know how to use it. How can I take some information, implement it today, that will help me sell more tomorrow? So what we do, and it's designed from scratch so that you can pick it up for 2 minutes or 2 hours, but literally like a magazine, read one little section, could just take you 2 minutes, but it'll add value to your business. And what you've got is 250 pages and whole website stuff and classroom sessions that just, for me, tackle all the limitations of traditional business education. And since launch in February last year, it's in 26 countries now, everywhere from UK to America to China to Ukraine, Ghana, Nigeria. And, that's 11 months in, I think now. And just in terms of the kind of the pitch and the dream, is that some of my competitors are worth $100 million. That's what they're kind of valued at. But a lot of them are still based on stuff like mindset and a lot of kind of woolly, kind of TED Talky type stuff. This is built from the ground up with real hands-on practical skills that I know they're good, and the feedback's good, and the Trustpilot reviews are good. But my belief that it fits in the market, not just on price, but actually I think it's more usable to more people in the real world. That yes, if you can afford to go and do a traditional MBA, do it. It'll be fantastic. You'll have a great time. But for the 99% of people that can't, they're in a job, they can't afford it, they haven't got time, they might not have the academic grades or background to get in, they could be in the wrong part of the world where they can't get access to it. There's hundreds of different factors. The Roadmap MBA is something to consider. And if you can't afford one, that's absolutely fine. Get in touch and I'll probably send you one for free as well. Especially if anyone kind of watches this, just reach out to me or Carl and I'll hook you up as well.
No, as you know, I have a copy myself, and I love the point there where you said it is like a magazine. You can go in and you can read a small section, or you can read a few pages. I mean, that's all I've been doing. As you say, I do wear many hats as a founder. You touched on the ones I actually do, like the HR stuff, the operations, the day-to-day stuff. It is a lot, especially with early stage startups. So having a resource like this, and plus the live streams and the videos and the other content, it's just from my perspective as a founder, is just so good to have.
Well,
You
one of
just
the interesting things, and I don't know if we'll talk about pivoting, but when you also had version 1, I believe, which it was my minimum viable product that I kind of launched. And one of the things that I really kind of learned was that I'd written the book and it was good content and I had a website and there's hundreds of videos. And it was actually consumer feedback and how important that is. One of the things that people actually said was that they love the fact that they can dip in and out. So when people are busy day on, day out, you don't feel guilty that you're not turning up to class because you don't have to. But if you need to, you can. But it's the fact that in the live classroom sessions that we have, we do 4 a week, all different time zones. It's the fact that Carl can join or you can join or whoever. We walk through the course, but we make the concept real to you. So there's a two-way feedback. And because I'm kind of good at this, we had a chap called James join the 3 o'clock session on Tuesday. And within 20 minutes, we'd revolutionized his whole idea about how he was going to fund his business as a prime example with that one. Tech founder, very good at what he does, understands the technology, but never been taught to sell and run a sales pipeline. And now that he's set up as a freelancer, his biggest challenge is to make money to survive. You're not going to get taught that at Newcastle University or Harvard or wherever. They're not going to teach you how to make money in 2 months' time. Otherwise, you can't pay your rent. We do. We could talk about it. We give you the techniques. And because I do this all day, every day, the people on the course, I'm very honest about my own journey so that it's not just a tutor or lecturer teaching you someone else's theory. Whilst I do that, it's making it real that actually I tell you about what I'm doing. I'll be honest about things that I've tried this week, stuff that's worked, stuff that hasn't worked. But it's that two-way interaction you don't get on Udemy or Masterclass or a lot of the other platforms where they're all one way. For me, the balance of what I'm trying to create is the Peloton of business education. So if you know what Peloton is, they revolutionized fitness classes where you can join on from anywhere in the world, but it's live sessions. You can talk to people, you can see the leaderboards, you can have different tutors, you can do different classes. I'm trying to do that for business education, making it accessible. And at some point, hopefully this year, it's not going to just be the Steve Pugh show. I'm going to have different presenters, different languages, and a whole kind of new platform I've got coming. But the real first pivot was even doing the classroom sessions from scratch because I hadn't planned to do it. But ironically, now that's the strongest USP that I have. And part of the reason why it's such a USP is because it's very difficult live when you're broadcasting to 20,000 people. If someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer, you're going to get found out pretty quick. And the truth is, most people that kind of do what I do that help people grow and scale, they just talk about someone else's theory. They don't actually live it and breathe it. So part of the USP for the business and for me is me, my background and my knowledge and my experience, but it's a way to add value to Carl's business or your business, like super, super quick. And that's what we're kind of looking to, do. And the fact that you can get it for free is hopefully attractive as well.
Yeah, I think speaking to myself again, I gravitate towards people that practice what they preach. You get a lot of people that talk the talk but haven't necessarily walked the walk. I know
Mhm.
that's cliche, but that's the only
It's
way I
true.
could put it. Um, but with your content and your stuff, it's like you're doing it day to day.
Mhm.
So anyone seeing that, they can relate to it. I'm a business owner. This person's doing these things each day. I will engage and listen to that content. Whereas I think there is a lot of sort of talkers around the business world that maybe just preaching something that it might have a bit of value here and there, but what you're really getting out of that. Whereas with yours, it's every day. It's
But that's
value every
the
day.
other side to it as well is that so I'm 38 now and I've been around a bit, but I am good at my job. But a lot of the people I compete against are in their 50s. And I knew when I set up, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. But there were people who basically will say, who the fuck's this guy? What does he know? He's only in his 30s. Da, 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 da. So part of the reason with my marketing and campaign and stuff, when I send people the packs, you get this and you can flick through it in your own time and hopefully see how good it is and the depth and the quality and stuff. You can't fake that. And the point is, it disarms anyone's ammo against you to say that you don't know what you're doing. And because the big thing about business again is that you could give 100 people a theory of, most people know in theory how to grow a business. Less than 1% will actually execute to a high standard to actually be successful. That people can see me execute every day, at least every week on the streams, and the amount of effort that goes into these, that you can't fake that. And then likewise, hopefully the fact that after 10, 11 months in 26 countries, my hope is that that's only going to grow over time. And just as a prime example, so for instance, one of my other big inspirations is, do you know Gymshark? So Ben Francis,
Yes.
that does that great British company, rarely inspirational. At some point, they were built to a flotation, and they're kind of on the way there now, valued at over $1 billion. But it's no surprise I'm currently now working with my second company as a client, as a management consultant, who are floating on the stock market. By the time with the roadmap I float in 5-6 years' time, I will have been through the process 5-6 times. And the point is, companies hire me. There's some firms in America that'll pay me $250 an hour to give them advice on how to do stuff, and they wouldn't do that if I couldn't deliver. But the point is, the ability to be a management consultant and work with people and be on board meetings and see what works and see what doesn't work. It's all of that information and knowledge I can process and then give back and share and simplify to help people who are on their journey, because I actually do it. I don't just have a job in university and teach someone else's textbook, which could be 10 years out of date. It's stuff that's happened today. And then again, that's the part of the beauty of when I do my live stream every Friday morning. I'll talk about stuff that's happened the day before, the morning before, and just talking about it and improvising. Because for me, the proof is in the pudding, that you kind of execute and you put your own cock on the block kind of thing to prove how good you are. And it's that which people will either buy into or they won't.
No, it's very true. And you say you launched last year in February, am I
Yep.
right in saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So how was the journey from, you starting out to saying, okay, we're going to start Roadmap MBA? Could you talk about that journey there?
Okay. So I was born and raised in Liverpool, single parent, went to uni, and I started my career in construction. And I won't go through the whole kind of thing. But anyway, when I kind of finished my PhD, well, actually, no, when I was doing my PhD, I was on a scholarship of £13,300 a year, which I'd come from working overseas in Jamaica on a really good job and a big $100 million kind of project. Global recession hit in 2008, came back to England to do a PhD and actually win a girl back who was in Sheffield, who's now my wife, which is quite cool. But anyway, it was at that point I started my first business, and it was actually a photography business. And that's where I learned all about cameras and lighting. So part of the reason why I know how to do all of this, I've been doing it a long time. And anyway, so fast forward through when I then moved up to the Northeast after I'd finished and then got my first job and basically worked my way up through different companies. Luckily, I am quite good at learning stuff, but I had to learn everything from scratch the hard way, reading hundreds of books, having lots of different jobs, having some good ones, some bad ones, see what works, but actually like in practice, what actually works. So I remember one of the techniques in the book I learned in the back of a taxi in Dubai. We're going to see a big client there, but the point is I've kind of been there and done it. And over kind of quite a few years, what I'd actually started to do, and I'm not even sure why, I started to compile all the ideas and concepts into a Microsoft Word document. And basically that then developed into the very rough draft of the first book, which was called The Growth Strategy Roadmap, which was kind of similar to this, but not as good, And then I had lots of different jobs. I went through my last paid job was head of strategy and marketing for a PLC energy firm, helped them float on the stock market. It was a good job, but I hated the people. And then when I decided to leave there, it was either set up on my own, and this was September, October 19, or I was offered more jobs, and I decided to kind of go for it. And then, so I set up as freelance contractor. So basically people hire me to do stuff, and that was in October. And it was kind of over the next kind of 3-4 months, I started to write up, just into slightly more detail, but nothing special. And it was when lockdown happened. I think it was the April of 2020. And basically everyone went on to Zoom, and I realized the potential for online education, because although this is forced due to a pandemic, we all know that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to happen more and more and more. So at that point, I already knew how to use Adobe InDesign and lots of different things, and basically started to draft it up into an actual book and a course and do the business plan and kind of do it. And then the trick is always, it's like the lean startup principle of launch, get the minimum viable product out there, get the feedback, see what works, see what doesn't work. And then from February 21 to November, I ran through the course once or twice with different, groups of people. So it was just multiple kind of iterations. And that was really useful actually, because you're getting consumer feedback from people that maybe didn't go to uni, or they have different, so you're getting different viewpoints, which make you think, "Well, actually, I didn't think of that. It's really good." So then come like June or so, it started to do quite well. A lot of my money was coming in from the consultancy stuff. What I'd done to launch the minimum viable product, which was version 1, it was fine. Like, it was in quite a nice box. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, a nice user experience, but it wasn't world class in the way that I knew for the ambitions that I have for the business and where I want to go with it. That if you're genuinely aiming there, you have to put the time and the effort in to create the brand and everything that goes with it at that level. So, for instance, it's the classic conundrum when you start to earn revenue or money. You can either someone I used to live with had his dad, who had a chain of business in the Middle East, used to say it's expensive to be cheap. And I could have gone for a much cheaper provider and a cheaper brand, or I knew I could pay 5 times as much, but go with the company which will get me to there. So rather than invest a little bit and just be an average, and I had certain companies in mind who I then went out and bought, but it was the difficult decision of, do you play it safe, or do you spend the money and just kind of live the lifestyle? And what I've really done over the past kind of 2 years, and even now, like, I'm doing good money every month and I'm doing quite well. But in the past kind of 10 months, I've paid myself less than minimum wage, because all my money goes back into the business, because I know where I'm trying to kind of get it to. And then what's been really interesting is that for the whole of version 1, and probably for the first 10 months, I'd send out free courses, I'd do what I'm doing, and people would start to see it, but nobody really cared. It's that balance of, yeah, they're probably seeing what Steve's doing, but meh. But with version 2, and the fact that, especially with the live streaming every week, and the quality is hopefully quite good, it's now at a point where people are interested, and it's just evolved. But the point is, it's that every startup will go through a point where nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody cares, and it'll catch. So for me, it hasn't catched in a way the full hockey stick to be driving millions of pounds in revenue, but just in terms of general interest in customer feedback. And the more you learn about your customer, exactly what you said, you're typical that a lot of people will have the textbook, work through it in their own time, and then do the day job, which is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Because in theory, you can imagine if I sold 1 million courses, I don't want 1 million people on every call, because it'd be a nightmare. But actually, if you only had 5% of the people on the course, or 2% of the people join, so you had a small group of 6 people who talk through stuff, that's actually the dream. But I only really learned that, and I'm now comfortable with that. So if we had Tuesday's 3 p.m. session had 2 or 3 people on it, but that was great because we had a really good conversation. But rather than being demoralized that why there are only 2 or 3 people on, you're learning about your customer. And the trick is to know, as long as they know they can come if they want to, that's okay. And the whole point is, it's that kind of learning curve. And then what I also tried to do, which I think is good advice, in my first year, it was about building it and just getting it live and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. I'm now at the point where I've kind of done the hard work. I've got the studio, I've got the textbooks, I've got the stuff. And now it's actually about the marketing, the feedback, and accelerating and telling people. But I still don't expect it to make any money for like another year and a half, 2 years. And it might do. But I think, again, a lot of people expect to make money straight away, and you shouldn't. It's that balance. But again, that's where you want to balance your incomes through different ways. So I still get 99% of my money from a consultancy, but actually that funds the dream. And I've gone that route as opposed to raising money from someone else, which is just for control and everything else.
So you mentioned you did the first book and you just put it out there. What was the feedback like on the book, on the experience, and how did that impact the second book?
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Good
Yes,
question.
yeah. Speaking about like the customers that were getting involved, or just general, friends or
Well,
family, that sort of thing.
what was quite funny is that so I'm a big Apple fan. I know you can't see this, but I've got a lot of Apple products in this room. And so I knew right from the start, and every founder will say this, that they want a great user experience. And what I wanted was both the good book and the nice paper stock and that kind of thing. But I also wanted a nice box that it comes in, and, like, nice when you peel it off, and the experience and the whole thing. And one of the things that I don't regret doing it, but the original book, and it was kind of white mostly, came in this really nice white box. It was custom made, and it had like a tear strip on it, and you fold it up, and it was colourful, and it said the Roadmap to Ruin, and it was great. But the issue was, as soon as you'd opened it, it was just waste. It would just sit there, and then either they keep it just to keep the book in, but it was really tatty, or it go in the bin or the recycling. And just from a sustainability point of view, I hated it because I thought, well, actually, my first batch was $500. I had 500 sets of this that I knew was just waste. So I knew for version 2, sustainability was really at the core of everything I wanted to do. Removed all use of plastics, improved the actual kind of content of stuff. So when people say to me, a prime example was actually, there's 3 modules on sales. And there's a lady who's a founder who sells both B2B and B2C. And when we were going through the different concepts, she'd actually say to me, which ones do I use for B2C and which ones are B2B? I hadn't even thought to explain that because in my own head, it made sense. And it's that kind of thing that you do need genuine user feedback to kind of see what works. And one of the big things that I've been doing more recently is actually looking at my competition. Really looking at really big entities, like top of their game, almost Netflix level stuff. What do they do? How does it work? What do I like? What do I not like? And go back to the Gymshark example, massive fan of the company, and I bought some of their stuff recently because I even want to see what packaging does it come in? How quickly does it come? What does it work? Because that's the level I'm aiming for. But almost, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that when they launch, they aim too small. So in the northeast of England, where we're both based, if you start your business and you kind of only aim to the local market and you interact with local people about local funding or whatever, it's going to be very difficult to break into Ghana. As well, if you actually design it from scratch for the international market, and that includes, your branding, your imagery, everything about that kind of thing, it will gain so much more traction in. So I think I've got about 5 users in Ghana, but then hopefully it'll be 6, and then it'll be 12, and then it'll be 24. As where if I didn't have a diverse, set of cultures within my branding and materials, it'd be 0. And you can imagine that for most northeast businesses that have been around for 30 years, probably sell nothing into Ghana. And it's that balance of just, really look at global cultures, what fits, what doesn't, then build a product which is actually they're interested in. Prime example in India. I think probably to do with history, they still love the UK and they really respect what we do. But the growth and demand for business education in India is huge. And they've got a population above 1 billion people. One of my tactics, moving forward is to actually, yes, I'm going to try and break America, but actually that market, because they speak English, yes, they speak other languages, but it's really, even though technically with the roadmap, I only launched it 11 months ago, but I'm already aiming at that level because that's where I want to be, if that makes sense. But it's all the kind of feedback and what works and what doesn't work, and then using social platforms where people can access it anywhere in the world as a way to amplify your kind of message.
No, brilliant. And yeah, India's massive. I think they're the 3rd biggest in the world for the startup scene as well, just rapidly growing to an immense rate. So was there any challenges getting the book or the courses into these countries? Was there any sort of barriers that occurred, or was it plain sailing?
No, you know what, and this is part of the learning curve. And again, I'm going to quote Gymshark again. I was looking at how they've done their distribution. In the UK, I've got 2 packs right there they're going to send out. If I send one to you and one to Liverpool and one to London, it'll get there tomorrow. I can send one to Paris, Berlin, most places in Europe, and it'll be there 3 days, maybe. The first time I tried to send a pack to Nigeria, no joke, it took 3 or 4 months. When I send stuff to America now, and this is paid, top rate, tracked, signed, Royal Mail kind of thing. So, within reason, not UPS, but within reason, best I can do. You're still talking like 3-4 weeks. And it's the logistical challenges that I now am starting to tackle, that I know that if I really want to break America to the level I want, because if you think about a customer, when I order stuff on Amazon, I'm happy if it arrives in 2 days. But if it arrives quicker, I feel special. I'm like, oh, isn't that impressive? Oh, they must really have their shit together. Their logistics and operations are really good. So I want people, even though I could ship it in 48 hours, I always do 24 because I want that little delighter for people to go, oh, that came quick. because it again reflects on the whole brand. But I know for what I'm trying to do, if I genuinely want to break America, which is the highest value market, I need in-country distribution. I can't be sending stuff from the UK to America because it'll cost too much, it'll take too long, and it doesn't give the great customer experience. So one of my tasks for this year is to travel to America, meet with distributors, meet with printers, and actually have in-country delivery so that someone, Gymshark have their distribution in California and Ohio, interestingly, so East and West Coast. But it's that kind of level of, if you want to build a great user experience in North America, that includes how quickly they get it. And it's all of these details, but you never know that until you start to ship stuff. And that, like, there's loads of stuff that you learn to do with export codes and commodity codes and packaging, but it all happens over time. But actually, I kind of love it. And it's that balance of, because I genuinely appreciate the craft of anyone that does what you do or the Purchase team do or what I do, because it is difficult. I like the learning curve, because ironically, the harder something is to do, the harder it is to copy. And therefore, what you're then doing is cementing your own place in the market, because you're able to do difficult things. And because of that, you'll be successful, if that makes sense. So it's almost for any founder who's willing to take the difficult route to kind of, follow. If you can survive, you'll be so much stronger for it, because actually your competitors won't be brave enough to actually follow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you've seen it from the big boys, Amazon, the whole experience from you clicking buy to if you've got Prime next day, if you're lucky enough for that. Could I ask a question on the branding? When did the decision come in to change the branding? Was that from feedback, or was that something in your head from day one?
Well, so all of the original stuff I'd done myself. And Burnt, I know how to do magazine layouts, and I did all of that kind of thing myself. I had a bit of a brain block, so I used a local guy called Chris Nutman to help me with the original logo, which is it looked like a folding map. Again, quite obvious, but where you've got Roadmap MBA, it looks like a map. Fine. That for me was a good enough minimum viable product to get out there to get feedback. But again, I knew, and it's no disrespect to Chris's work or my own work, it was fine, but it wasn't world class. So for me, the best company, and I've known this for years just because I've been around a bit, there's a company in Middlesbrough called Better Agency, and they're really, really expensive, but they're really good. And they were my kind of bucket list if I could ever afford it. But just being honest, that was like 20 odd grand that I paid for the brand. And a lot of the brand creative, they basically went through a whole process. They came up with 3 kind of main types of designs. And as soon as they showed me the like pathway, which was you've got there, which is, for anyone that can't see it, it's like a big squiggle. But the idea is that, for one, so knowledge is meant to illuminate your path. It's to help you grow. It's to help you boost your career. And actually, it's a journey that never stops and it keeps moving. So what we wanted was something that was quite distinctive, that looks expensive, and you can tell it hasn't been done on the cheap. But actually, because I stream and I do a lot of video, I wanted something which could be animated and really take what was just a basic concept, but be able to use it in live streams, videos, podcasts, social media posts, print. But it's different to anything else that's out there. And it was the balance of where I could have happily stuck with what I had, but again, nobody would care. When people actually, it's really funny that when I first saw the brand, I could tell it was good, but it grew on me over time. And then what you can't see on this monitor, but on my phone, everything, I had it as my background on my phone just to get used to it and see, is it distinctive? And actually, you can just about see it behind me, but the logo and the R, so the R is obviously for roadmap, but it's the same light pathway shape. So it's the implementation of that same thing everywhere. Actually, it's in the bottom corner of my screen as well. It just, if you want to build a world-class, it would be like trying to make world-class sportswear with crappy materials. It's not going to happen. And you need the finish and everything to be spot on. For me, it was a worthy investment. That actually, a lot of stuff that you put money into brand is all about perception. So if people don't perceive that it's of a higher quality, and so much of this is intangible, they're not going to buy the product. You might sell some, but if you're trying to genuinely make something which is world-class standard, like Apple, like Samsung, like Gymshark, whatever, things like a brand are really important, that it takes time and it's the message behind it. And one of the big things that I know you're on Instagram, but I wanted the photography to go with it because, again, I've been into photography for a long time, to really reflect what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to just use stock images, because for me, you can tell if it's a stock image or not. So when I started my first ever photography business, there was a guy called Jez that I used to play in the Sheffield basketball team with. These are both as students. Fast forward 15 years, I'm doing this, doing quite well. He carried on doing photography, and it's his photos from his Instagram, which I bought from him. I've got about 25 or 30. And, but my point is, it's very cool people, very good photos, but there's depth within the brand, that it's not just stock. It's actually, I know the guy, they're his friends, they're real people in and around London. But it's that authenticity that I think you can't fake, is where if I hired a photographer and some models to go and pose around Newcastle and take some pictures, for me, you can tell that it's not genuine. And it's 95% of people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But the tastemakers and the people that matter, and me, because it's my baby, I care. And for me, it's funny. The more, you used to hear stories about Steve Jobs to be obsessive about every little detail, I kind of get it. And I think most founders will appreciate that the more you kind of build your baby, you get obsessive about tiny little details. Even, for instance, when I had these made, when the print first came back, more green soaked into the paper, so it's more green than I wanted it to be in terms of light pathway, but it was to do with the type of ink and how long it sat on the page. But again, I wasn't happy with it, because it's the details that really kind of matter. And it's, as a founder, you have to be obsessive about every single thing, because if you don't care, nobody else will. And I think it's part of these things that you learn over time, that I'm almost embarrassed sometimes when I'll apologize, but I will flag up every single thing, because I want it to, I want it to be good.
Yeah, no, I suffer from that as well. Um, we hired people through the Kickstarts, so new hires, fresh graduates, all that sort of stuff. So we had to get them up to speed on our branding and things and stuff like that. And yeah, there was a lot of it's not really our colors. Could we do this colors? And you actually feel a bit bad really telling them, but at the end of the day, it's like, if it's going back to the whole experience. If that experience isn't consistent throughout, then people are going to get maybe the wrong message, or they're going to avoid looking at your posts or things like that. So yeah, I think I try to push a balance of progress and perfection. Sometimes I just have to compromise and go for progress. But
So
yeah,
I never let it
it's
hold me back.
yeah,
But I almost suffered burnout last year, because I was working so hard on all the details and getting version 2 done and launched. And I've got some other stuff coming as well. But it was almost that, you need to look after yourself. And that's one of the things that I've really learned. Because the big thing for me is that rarely good entrepreneurs or founders have a work ethic that you want it to be perfect. You really kind of put the graft in.
yeah,
And that reflects on everything that you do. But because, I rarely understand what pays my bills, and it's doing stuff for other people, but they hire me because I put the same attention into what I do for them as what I do for other people. But that is the reason why I'll hopefully be successful, is where people aren't that bothered about branding will never create a brand that people care about. And the irony is that the really, really good brands make it look easy.
yeah. Oh, they do. The Going back to the Apple example, so simple, but everything is so sleek and lovely, and just it's user friendly, but it's not. It's it just lets the user just flow through the website or the phone or whatever they're using for that. So yeah, no, I appreciate good branding. Even as we're thinking now, I'm thinking of the founder session stuff. It's like,
It's nice.
I don't, yeah, but I really like it to be better. It's that sort of process in your head that you think is like, oh, I
But
could make
but
that
again,
better.
but you've just launched it. One of the big classic things, and I see this a lot. People are often too scared to launch, so they get paralysis and they do
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
There's people on the course that have dreams to launch a business. They can't even do the business, but they're too scared to launch the website because they're worried about the website not being perfect. And my point is, launch it and then just keep iterating, just keep learning. And then because the funny thing is, and it's been one of the biggest changes for me, is that when I first decided I was going to set up on my own, I had a lot of money in the bank. I had enough money to kind of survive for 2 years. If I didn't earn any money, happy days. So I had the comfort to kind of do it. It took me probably 6 months to get to the break-even point where I was earning more money than I was spending, if that makes sense. And luckily it grew from then. But what's quite funny is that in your first kind of year, you have a lot of capital costs to set up, for example, a studio, print costs, designing the book, getting everything up to speed, and people trying to get awareness of what you're kind of doing. But you get to a certain point, and that's again paying myself less than minimum wage. I'm really doing the proper entrepreneur hustle of driving a 10-year-old car with a dent in the door. I used to have a Porsche, but it's that I'm really kind of owning the hustle, because I'm really enjoying it. My fulfillment comes from the business. But now I'm at the point where I've got a new website coming. I'm hopefully going to have an app coming, but I've kind of paid for everything already, certainly within this tax year, which means that from April, when the new tax year starts, I'm going to have so much money to spend on good stuff like promotion and travel and whatever, that actually there's distinct differences in businesses, especially small businesses, founders. You've got a kind of break even, which the chap I mentioned before, to go from whenever you launch to make enough money every month to cover your bills. That's the hardest bit. Then you've kind of got the building of your app, your process, your product is difficult, and it takes time, and that's difficult again. But it's a different kind of difficult, because at least you're making money, you're surviving. And then when you kind of hopefully get to where I am now, it's the ability to build on the groundwork and the stuff. So I don't have to build another studio next year. I've done it. I know how it works. I know how to stream. I know OBS and that kind of thing. That now I'm going to have all that money. I mean, you're talking like 60, 70,000 pounds that I can now deploy on paid ads, or attending conferences, or going to San Francisco and speaking to publishers or whatever, that I didn't have last year. So it's staying in the game. It's like a boxer. You need to stay in the fight, not go down, because it will get easier over time. And it's easy now to look back on the past kind of 2.5 years, because I kind of got through it. But I always had this kind of guiding light that I knew what I wanted to do. And I always had a vision of how the dream one day to have my own studio was genuinely a dream. And it wasn't that long ago where I moved from my bedroom to this. But you need to have, like, I already know what's next and what's next after that. And it's just having the dream to really go for it, and have the conviction to really go for it, that, I could pay myself a lot more and have a nicer life. But then what I'm essentially doing is taking oxygen out the business, as where one of the things that you kind of find with age is that, it's where you get your fulfillment from. And for me, I love the creative. I love doing this. I love talking to people. And actually, that's what makes me happy, not getting paid a lot of money. So actually, I'm enjoying this process. It's the lowest I've ever been paid, ever. But I'm really enjoying it. And it's that process that, touch some wood, in 5 years' time, the Roadmap MBA will be worth $100 million. I'll still keep doing it because I enjoy it, but I'll be 45. And you know what I mean? It's that kind of balance of just, I know what the dream is. And then realistically, because it's making money, I'm already at the point where I could live off it. That actually, the other problem I think a lot of founders kind of go is that you have the goal and the dream, and and it's part of the reason why at the start of the course we really look at what are your aims, goals, and objectives. What is it you actually want to do? And the one that I joke with people about, that part of my dream was to work 4 days a month. That was the joke. And almost, so I'd do my streams, do my stuff, sit on a beach, read, travel, talk to people. But actually, so I'm purposely building the machine to allow me to do that, if that makes sense. A lot of people will build a business, but without the clear goal in mind. And what actually often happens is that they build something that they don't want and won't give them what they want. But it's just how you kind of go through that process. But most people don't realize that I could actually, in theory, work 4 days a month now if I was happy to leave it as is. But the truth is I'm not. And it's the whole Icarus thing. And I'm going to keep plugging away. And you'll see me plug away every week for the next 3 years. And then at some point, people go, oh, it was an overnight success. It was easy. He was lucky. Da, 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 da. And they'll never see it, but I won't care, because I know the time and effort and the detail that's gone in, and people I go with on the journey and working with different people. And you do watch what other people are doing and you respect it. That it's nice to kind of go through the people. It's the classic cliche, where people say, oh, really enjoy the journey. That's the best bit. And because I work with quite a lot of businesses where we grow it and sell it and we actually have the exit. The truth is, if someone dropped 10 million quid in your bank account today, you'd be happy for a week. And then you'd be like, okay, what am I doing next? And the same is true that there's a whole thing, section on ikigai, which is your meaning, belonging, your passion. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, regardless if it makes money or not. It just happens to be doing quite well, and it's that just passion project. Hopefully, is what's gonna pay off my mortgage, and
Oh, there's brilliant goals and brilliant North Stars to go for. I think when people see founders that are really, really passionate about their business, like they live and breathe it, they
You
love
can
it, they
tell.
love being there. You can tell the sort of, the twinkle in the eye, the sort of the smile when you talk about it.
But I think, just being honest, I from day one wasn't there.
Hmm.
So like when I launched version 1 and I was sending it to people, I think I was so nervous about what people were going to think. I didn't enjoy it. Like, it was nice to see people, when you've got an idea and you see it finally in the flesh. I'm sure the first time you saw the purchase at work or someone download it, it's great. But it was only the more you invest into it and the more you develop your messaging and your brand and the depth that comes in and the journey you go on, you love it more and more. I imagine it's probably what it's like having kids, and I don't have kids, but it's that balance of where my passion for the business now is a lot stronger than it was when I first started. But you do also see a lot of business owners who lose the passion for their business. And that's when things plateau. It's not going how they want. It's just a drudgery. There's no motivation. There's no real mission there. And I think when the big thing for me that I think it's what keeps me going. It's for people, the kids that grow up in Liverpool, single parent family, that otherwise would never have access to business education. The fact that they can get my course for free and help them start their first business doing photography or whatever, and but doing that on a global scale. People that would love to go to Harvard Business School, but would never in a million years get accepted or pay for it or whatever. There are options out there, but unless you've got 10 grand plus spare cash, which most people don't, the average saved money per household in the UK is £180 per month. And that's average. So 50% of people will save more, 50% of people save less. So to pay for your average MBA course is somewhere between 6 and I think it's 41 years of saving up without spending a single penny on going out for a meal, birthdays, Christmases, whatever. The point is, it's impossible. And that's for an average person. So for at least 50% of the population, it's even harder. And I think there's a big equality community thing that I'm really trying to help. It's for the everyday person. It's my community where I grew up. Anyone in that background that wants to start a business and grow, previously, and correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't really have anywhere they could go. Is when now they do, and it's making it accessible and it's making things simple, and they can join Zoom calls on their phone and they can watch videos, but there's no cost barriers, time barriers, location barriers that would otherwise hold them back. And I think it's because of that. That's what gets me up. So I was in the office for 6:30 this morning for a 7 o'clock session. I don't have to do that, but I want to. And that's the real mission of why I'm trying to do all this. Ironically, I don't need the money. It's about the bigger picture. And I think once I really kind of found that and I've started to articulate that, that's what gives me the fire. And I think, if you can find that for whatever you do, and it will be different for everyone, that's what will really make the difference in making the decisions that really align to the vision, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It really, really does. And speaking for myself, single parent most of my life. Dad was out of the picture. Was lucky to get into uni.
Mm-hmm.
I got into the startup world, and I had maybe a year of business under my belt.
Mm-hmm.
So this coming along, the Roadmap MBA, it's like, wow. I was like, where was this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
As someone that's been through it, and I did it the hard way, but also I'm lucky enough that so I worked from scratch, and when I was a kid, and this is a true story. So if you would have asked me when I was 15, two of my goals was I remember the first ever motor show I went to was, I think it was 1999, but it was the year they launched the Porsche Boxster. And I saw it, and it was so out of reach. As a little poor kid, that was like, mind blowing. And my two aims in life were to buy a new Porsche and become managing director. I didn't even necessarily know what managing director was. I knew it was a big job, but I didn't really know what it was. And basically, it was 2014, I think. I might get my years wrong. but I'd just turned 33. I was previously almost getting made redundant from an oil and gas company doing what I was doing. Just there was a big downturn, whatever. But anyway, I landed a managing director job of an international company based in Durham, 3 million turnover, at 33. And in the same year, there was a new brand of Porsche came out called the 718. I got one of the first ones in the country, but it was two of my really big life goals at 33. But I was only able to do that because I worked my ass off for a long, long time. And I think ironically that when you start with nothing, you get a work ethic and a hunger because you want to get something. You've got that passion. And for me, that never leaves you. And it's almost where, so I still remember what it was like to have nothing. And even when I was at uni, I was probably the poorest kid in my class, that when my classmates would all say, oh, should we go to Weatherspoons for lunch? And we're talking like a £3 lunch. I would suck my teeth because I'd be worried about paying for it. And it was that balance of, but when you've been through that and you've almost grown up with it, the ability to help people and really kind of give back is what really kind of drives me. But going back to your point but it's when you've been through it and you understand it, that's why I'm willing to put tens of thousands of pounds, if not 10 times that, of my own money into stuff which I give away for free, because I wish I had it when I was 24, 21, 28.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an amazing story and it's so motivational. But I think the best businesses out there are the ones that have that story, that
Mhm,
relatable story that people can get behind.
mhm.
And this one is incredible, and you're doing so well with it. So, what's next, Steve? Where does Roadmap MBA go? Tell me about 2022, and tell me in 10 years' time, where's that Roadmap MBA going to
No,
be?
cool. I was going to say I did a podcast video just on this. Basically, because it was one of my videos just before Christmas, and I told people my own roadmap for next year, exactly what I'm doing, because it's that it's not a motivational thing, but likewise, you'll see if I deliver it or not. So obviously, it's bigger, better, faster in terms of the course. I'm doing a lot of stuff to revalidate what it is and looking at other courses and if it's relevant to small businesses and founders. And because I live and breathe that every day, I know it's good, but that's part of it. I've actually got a new book which I'm going to launch into retail, which is this. So it's a bigger, fancier, hard. Basically, it's like a coffee table book of the course. But I think there's a real gap in. So a lot of business courses sell B2B, where I would approach a HR director who will buy 5 or 12 copies for their leadership team and whatever. Very rare, and nobody sells business courses B2C in terms of like in retail stores. So it's almost where you can imagine if I had the roadmap textbook in Harrods, Phoenix, Selfridges, whatever, that you would go pay full price for the course, but you get the proper book and then you get all the. But the point is, from a brand positioning point of view, it would set me apart from every other business course because it's cool enough and it's high quality enough that it can sit at that brand position level, that it's a premium product. So part of my dream is if you go into airports, for instance, or posh shops, Mont Blanc pens that sell for £500 each.
Hmm.
But that kind of level in that kind of section, to have the Roadmap MBA course there, that as long as I can make the margin attractive enough to retailers, the hope is that they'll take it because it should still fit their target market. So retail is a big one. I've got ambitions to grow the course into different languages, different presenters. We have a new website coming, which is it's going to be like Netflix. It's so much better than what I've kind of currently got, and that's in development now. Traveling more, going to overseas conferences, going to see people, and actually just trying to get more people, get feedback. That it's currently in 26 countries, and that was from a standing start. I believe there's circa 200 countries in the world. I want to start knocking on those doors. And then one of the other big ones, which I'm going to talk about on the podcast tomorrow, is that now that I have the product, which is great, I've got my unit cost, I've done all of the hard work, is looking at public sector tenders. So I actually submitted one on Wednesday, which is for Liverpool City region, to do business support, entrepreneurship support, similar to what you've done. But in theory now, I can ship 500 courses to Liverpool tomorrow. But as a way to scale a business, my original business was about consultancy, where it's one-to-one support and chats. But I've done the hard work. Same as with an app. Someone could download it a million times. the ability to start to look at business support tenders and really find opportunities where Manchester might order 1,000, and if my competition don't have anything near as good as this, or their price isn't as good, that could be, that could be millions of pounds a year. And I have lots of little irons and enough fires. But the other side, just to be a complete context to everyone else who watches this, I still spend at least 80% of my week doing stuff for other people. So you've got one person on their own, arguably 1 day a week plus weekends, trying to build all of this, and that's kind of where my time is, because the rest of it pays for it all. If I can ever get to the point where I'm earning enough that I could do this full time, then I really want to accelerate. But the point is, when people who might listen or hear this that might worry, I don't have time, I have to work 3 days a week or whatever, you can build it around everything else you're doing. It doesn't have to be a blocker. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. People that might see this might go, oh yeah, but he's fine, he's done the hard bit. But it wasn't long ago. And go back on my YouTube, you'll see the first interview I did was terrible. But it was in my spare bedroom, and it was just, you just see it grow. But that was less than 2 years ago. And it's having faith, doing all the right things, following the roadmap, but actually kind of just going through it. If you have genuine conviction in what you want to do, why you want to do it, and how you help, I guarantee you'll do well.
Yeah, that's so good. And, your journey so far and your journey ahead is so interesting. Can I ask you a random question?
Anything you want.
Out of the 26 countries, which was the most surprising to pick up the Roadmap MBA?
It's funny, I keep a list on my phone, and it's the classic way. Where are we at? That's it. It's a classic thing whilst you're saying that it's not live. So when you cut this back, just magically look like I found it in seconds.
I might keep it in.
There we go. I have so many notes on my phone. There we go. Okay, so we've got England, Scotland, Ireland, Netherlands, China, Latvia, USA, Nigeria, Ghana, Croatia, Germany, Austria, Ukraine, Estonia, Egypt, Singapore, Canada, Denmark, Australia, India, Wales, Turkey, UAE, Portugal, France, and South Africa.
Wow.
And that's from standing start in the past 6 months, 10 months.
Yeah.
That hopefully, touch wood, it's only going to accelerate. And the point is, I just want people to find value from it, so that if they get it, use it, go through, and actually just say to friends, you know what, it's pretty good. I'm happy to give away. I've probably in this room got about 800 courses, because my last print run was 1,000. I'm happy to give them all away if people get value from it, they learn from it, and actually just tell someone else. Post on social media. And it's that classic thing of, if you're in a job, you could, like, the classic thing about the course is that, so I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. My wife is a solicitor, but you could be any profession. You're going through your job, and at some point you might have ambitions to get promoted. But how do you learn the skills? So I'm going to take my wife, for instance. Very good at employment law, knows the law, knows how to work with customers. But she's recently got promoted, and she's been asked to manage a team, bring in customers, support the strategy to grow the firm. None of those things she's been trained to do. And actually, but bear in mind, there's hundreds of millions of people around the world who sit in a business who will, feel that the part of their jobs that they're not trained to do. The roadmap is designed to plug that gap. So you could be brilliant at 9 out of the 10 things, but each one learn a little about sales. This fits, and it's all in one place. And it's that kind of thing of, because I've spent so much time thinking about the user, and I talk with them and I see what they want and see what they like. If I had this when I was growing up, hopefully it would really help that, people that were in your cohort when you were doing the kind of, incubator type stuff. I think there's a real need there that you can just keep it on your shelf and just flick through. And when you're then looking at, okay, look, we've got the app, it's not really catching. What's our brand positioning? Where do we sit against the market? What are the techniques to do it? Rather than have to go buy the book, read 400 pages, then try and figure out how to do it yourself. It's on one double page spread. You can come on a call, we talk it through and make it real within the next hour, not 7 days after you've read the book. But you're not going to read the book, you haven't got time. And I think a lot of people kind of plateau or stagnate because it's so difficult to do it the traditional ways. And it's all of these little nuances and things that I believe hold people back. That's what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And Steve, I've got 2 more questions
Anything.
before we wrap it up. So let's say, we put the Roadmap MBA book out there. We can buy it. I can gift it to someone for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
What age would you say would be a great age to give someone this book for Christmas, hypothetically?
24 to
24.
44, 50. Because basically, before that, your whole life is built on education or getting your first job, just finding out who you are, finding your feet. So, for instance, when I went through my undergrad, did my master's, went to work in construction, etc., I don't think I really knew who I was until I was, say, 25. Where you've worked for a bit, you get a feel for what stuff's like. You've got your partner, you might, and it's at that point when you start working in a job and you're working away and you're working hard, and you might have ambitions to be managing director, but there's no roadmap to get from wherever you are to there. I had to figure that out from scratch, and it was doable, and it is doable. Now I wrote it. That's what this is. And yeah, before that, you're not ready. It's too soon. I know a guy that did gift it to his daughter, which is fine. I don't know how old his daughter is. But I think for me, it's that level of when you're in your career, but it's starting to plateau. You've got ambitions. You're not sure how to get there. We'll give you the roadmap to kind of get to that point. Fast forward through, I think by the time you get above 50, I'm guessing, will be at a certain level, very experienced, that kind of thing. And it's more then relevant probably to your team within your business to help grow the business rather than for yourself. And that's just being honest. But it's that balance. So yeah, I think 25 to 50 is probably the sweet spot. And above that certain point for a business owner, you don't become a business owner and actually have a team and stay in business if you're rubbish. But one of the biggest challenges that business owners have is how do you grow the business? And a big part of that is how to upskill your team so that it's not just you getting better, it's all 10 people getting better. And that's where, in theory, upskilling your team and buying them the course will give you a much better output than it would just using it on yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I agree. As you know, I've got your newest one.
Yep.
I love the first one as well, and it's funny. My business partner Justin borrowed it and never could give it back, so he's obviously enjoying the other book as well. So
but that's
I made sure to bring the
version
newest one
2.
home.
Well, I can happily send you another one. How many people have you got on the team? Is it 4?
There's myself and 2 others. Yeah.
Well, so I'll send you 3 more or 2
Oh,
more.
brilliant.
So they've got, and then we can go through it together. But it's so important to it's the challenges that you go through, and especially in the startup. The classic quote, which I think is Oprah Winfrey, is that you don't know what you don't know. It might be Maya Angelou, so don't shoot me on that one. But especially when imagine yourself now, you're pretty experienced, you're getting out there, you're doing your stuff. But you fast forward 10 years, you're going to learn a lot in that time. I'm fortunate enough now that, I've had quite a beta career. I've had lots of different things, but I've, seen a lot of stuff. I've learned it. And it's just the ability to take all that information, process it, and then almost act as a mentor or a guide to help people coming through. I love doing it. And it's the kind of thing that most people have an agenda or they'll offer to do it, but your average business coach will charge you 300 quid a month or whatever. And I guarantee they won't have this breadth and depth of knowledge, but that's 3.5, 4 grand a year. You can have it for free. But my point is, it's trying to help people grow and develop so that you can put that same money back into paid ads or even paying yourself or whatever. And it'll help more startups grow and be successful because you haven't got money siphoned off to stuff that isn't adding value, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think this is key, especially for startups, especially for very early stage founders, just to get your head around it, because it can be daunting. It can be very, very daunting. And if you've got sort of I think on my review I called it a playbook. It basically is. It's like a play-by-play book for your business and things like that. And I recommend it highly. And And my last question for you, Steve, is what's the well, I guess it's a double barrel question, is what's the best advice you were given, and what advice would you like to give to somebody listening or watching this today?
Okay. It's really funny because on my own podcast, I'm now up to like 80 episodes and I ask everyone the same question. So I've heard a lot of really good advice. One of the big ones is just find something that you're passionate about. And even if you don't do it full time as your job or startup, still find it. And it could be volunteering at a food bank. It could be helping young people develop Cubs or Scouts. It could be football coaching. It could be flute, whatever it is that makes you happy. And just really embrace that and not feel guilty if work in Tesco's to fund your life, look after your kids, but still have your passions. There's nothing wrong with that. I would happily work. The big thing for me when I started the business, and it's almost with when I was in Cubs and Scouts growing up, it was almost, I think it's a Cub Scout promise, but it's do your best every day. But my big thing was I will happily walk away bankrupt at some point if I know that I've tried my best. So I launched the business. I do everything I possibly can. I put my heart and soul into it. I invest in the right stuff. I do the podcasts. I do everything. If in 6 months' time or a year's time, the bank manager or someone says, "Look, Steve, it's over," I'm okay with that because I couldn't have done anything more from the day I set up to today. I could not have done a single thing. I could do some things differently, but I couldn't have tried harder. And it's that knowing in your heart of hearts, if you're happy with your own effort, almost the result doesn't matter, win or lose. It's what you don't want to do is have the regrets that you half-assed it. Because I think a lot of people, they like the idea of starting a business. They like the prestige. They want people to think really good things of them, but they're not willing to make the sacrifices to really graft, put in the time, the effort, reduce their own expenditure to really kind of see it through and commit to it. But the ones that do are the ones that become billionaires. Does that count? Is that right?
That's that's brilliant. No,
my,
honestly, it's
on the other one, my other piece of advice, and this is genuine, but it's a different thing. When I grew up, I had nothing. We were pretty poor. When I was at uni, my mum used to give me £100 a month just to help me pay for stuff, which isn't bad. But likewise, it's, I used to have an ex-girlfriend that got £700 a week from her dad. Different, different ball game. But the point is, I know what it's like to struggle through. But when you either go through your career or start your business, if you can reduce your overheads, because actually the ability, so me now, I live off give or take £1,000 a month. What that means is that say if the business earns £10,000 a month, it means I've got 9 that I can invest in branding, advertising, tech, whatever. And, it allows me to grow the business mega, mega, mega fast. A lot of people, be it either they earn 10 grand a month, but they pay themselves 8 or 5, whatever. But then you're reducing the oxygen out of the business so it won't grow. And then the issue is you can have the same product, but if in your business you earn 10 grand a month, but your overheads are 9, you're never going to be able to accelerate it and get momentum because you don't have the oxygen there to really kind of let it burn. And the ability to actually keep your overheads low and actually, hopefully be comfortable and still do what you're doing. You have all that firepower, which grows every month. Now, in some ways, I'm not going to say I have more money than I know what to do with, but I have this ammunition to allow me to grow the business mega, mega, mega fast. And it's only going to accelerate. That if my overheads kept getting bigger, and that could be personal or business, it just slows you down. It's like gravity. It's just an anchor. And that would be my one tip to anyone. The viability of your business and the success of your business will multiply exponentially the lower you can keep your overheads.
Yeah, just be smart with, the overheads of your personal and business life. Yeah, that's brilliant advice.
But it's just having been there, done it. Trust me, I know all parts of the spectrum. And yeah, it's easy. So prime example, I think it was part of just growing up. My mum would always force me to save up before I bought anything. So I remember my first ever job was in a supermarket, and it shows how old I am, but it was like £2.85 an hour. And the first time I ever saved up £1,000, I think I was 18, but I was so proud. That was hard graft. Say for instance, when I bought my Porsche, and this isn't to brag, but I'm just being honest, I'd saved up a deposit of like 18 grand, which I put down, but it meant that my monthly outgoings on the actual lease payments were like 400 quid a month, maybe less, which meant that even when I had the car, I was still earning more money every month, saving more money. If I wouldn't have saved up, the lease payments would have been £1,200 a month. I would have got the car sooner, but then I wouldn't have been able to save anything enough to then have enough cash to grow my business. And it's that self-discipline that if you can build a lifestyle that you're happy with and you get your contentment from at a certain level, the headroom between what you earn and what you spend is freedom that for business or a startup or a founder or a freelancer, that is what will keep you alive. But ironically, that is what will make you successful or not, because you can redeploy and grow so much quicker. And I've never heard anyone actually say that in a podcast or an interview before, but I guarantee that is the best advice I believe that you'll get.
No, it's beautiful, and I appreciate that honesty as well. I think it's a quote from Jay-Z. I'm picking this out of my brain, who says, "If you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it."
Yeah.
Which I think, that's plucked that from my hip hop and rap knowledge. But it's so true, and thank you for being so open and honest on the podcast today. I just want to wrap it up by letting you, call to action to anyone watching. Where should they go? Where should they find Roadmap MBA? Let them know.
Cool. Well, if anyone, I don't know what time we're on, but if anyone's actually watched this all the way through, you deserve to get a freebie. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, Steve Pugh. If you search for Roadmap MBA, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever, honestly, reach out to me. I will happily send you a free course. Anywhere in the world, you could be anywhere. I promise you, I will ship you a course. My hope is that you get value from it. I believe you will. I do 4 classroom sessions every week. You're more than welcome to join. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And even if you don't reach out for a free course, but you should, you can join them anyway. It's cool. It's all about just giving value and that kind of thing as well. No agenda, nothing. There's no catch. There's no whatever. And hopefully it's useful. And then likewise, if you ever need any tips, advice, questions, anything, again, don't hesitate to kind of reach out. And I will always help if I can.
That's brilliant, Steve. And thank you so much as well for being the first ever guest on Founder Sessions. I think we've set the bar pretty high. And so thank you very much.
No worries. And I'll be impressed if they have a better setup. But again, this is my hobby. I love it. So honestly, it's been a pleasure. And if I can ever do anything to help, just let me know.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steve.